Chapter 949. Alex had lived in this orphanage for the past 10 years, from the time when he was 8 until he turned 18 years old. Therefore, he had a lot of affection for this place. In the past, he did not have the face to come back because he was still a little destitute. Now that he already had a little money, he felt that it would be good for him to go in to see what other items the orphanage needed. That way, he would be able to help them to solve this problem when the time comes. Alex nodded slightly before he said, "Then, let's go in and take a look around the orphanage." Linda was overjoyed. She hurriedly grabbed Alex's arm before she dragged him into the orphanage. Alex could only allow her to drag him around as he held onto his wife, Emma's hand. Emma could feel her heart beating a little faster, but she allowed Alex to continue holding her hand as he led her into the orphanage. The Orris Hill Welfare Institute was built in the last century and had a very long history. The buildings here were all relatively low brick buildings, and each building was already decades old. Alex realized that this place was still basically the same as when he was still living here many years ago. Therefore, he could not help but ask Linda, "Hasn't the orphanage been expanded or renovated throughout all these years?" Linda replied, "We were planning to expand the orphanage, but our funding has always been very tight. However, we have more children now compared to the past. The Dean and Mrs. Brown think that it would be better for us to spend the money on the children instead. We would have to save as much as we can on all the other expenses." Alex looked around the yard and saw the rusty slides, seesaws, and swivel chairs that looked very familiar to him. This gave him a slightly unpleasant feeling. These were all the things that he had played with when he was still young. This only meant that these toys were already at least 20 years old now. The younger brothers and sisters who entered the orphanage after him were still playing with all these limited numbers of old toys. Alex could not help but feel a little self-reproach. Before Nolan found him, he had always been worried about Mrs. Brown's health, and he tried to do everything that he could to treat Mrs. Brown's illness. After Nolan found him, he had been thinking of everything that he could do to slowly regain his dignity. However, during this period of time, he did not even think of donating a sum of money to the orphanage so that he could improve the living condition and environment of his younger brothers and sisters. This was completely unforgivable. As he thought about this, Alex planned to donate tens of millions of dollars to the orphanage so that they could expand and renovate the entire orphanage. After that, they could buy the best toys as well as provide the best education and learning equipment for all his younger brothers and sisters. He was also going to buy computers and iPads for them. Emma did not know that Alex was in a very complicated mood or that he was blaming himself at this time. She was curiously observing the orphanage's environment. Although this was her first time here, she felt that this was a very pleasant and warm place. Warm, perhaps because her husband had grown up here. In truth, Emma had never once regarded Alex as her contracted husband. In her heart, Alex had always been her real and legal husband.